Hello everyone, and welcome to another BuyAndStoreGold.com interview with a precious metals industry professional. I'm Roger Bond, and today we have as our guest Mr. Ed D'Agostino. He is the General Manager of the Hard Assets Alliance, a relatively new company for buying physical gold, silver, platinum, and palladium that can be delivered to you or stored in one of their secure vault locations around the globe. We personally opened several accounts at Hard Assets Alliance right away when they opened, and have been very pleased with everything about the service ever since. Thank you for agreeing to be with us today, Ed. Could we perhaps start by having you give us a brief description of Hard Assets Alliance and maybe what sets it apart from some of your competitors?
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to, and thanks for having me. So basically, Hard Assets Alliance, our goal was to bring investors the convenience and the liquidity of an ETF, but at the same time give them the security and the peace of mind that comes with owning physical precious metal. So what I mean by that is, when we were starting Hard Assets Alliance, we surveyed everything that was out there for products and services and just picked out the best things that we liked. And what we liked best about an ETF was the ease of trading and the liquidity. What we didn't like is the lack of a physical aspect to holding your gold or silver. Conversely, dealers offer gold and silver that can be shipped to your door, which in some instances is great, and we actually offer that service. But you're limited in how much you can have on hand or how much is prudent to have on hand, and then you need to start thinking about offsite storage, and that's where we felt like there was really a void in the market. So we tried to combine the best aspects of all the different services out there into one, and that's how we arrived at the Alliance. So in a nutshell, we have an online trading platform that will feel very comfortable to anyone who has an online brokerage account. So you can open an account, fund your account just like you would, say, an E-Trade. And then you can, instead of buying stocks, you can buy physical precious metal. And you can buy that metal for delivery, or you can buy it for storage at one of our U.S. or international storage vaults. And you can sell that metal back to our network of wholesale dealers and LBMA listed refiners whenever you want. So there's your liquidity piece. Or you can take delivery. Say you want to have your metals in storage, and 6 months later you decide you want some of it delivered. You just get online, choose X number of bars or coins, and click deliver, and they're on their way to you.
Well, I think you've really hit a sweet spot with the investors out there based on the popularity of what we have seen so far. There really was, I think, a void, and it seems like you've done a great job of filling it and just kind of increasing your offerings ever since you started the service. One of the things I guess I'd like to discuss an advantage of HAA being US based, and you touched on it just a little bit, but I mean, now for me, this means that you're a little bit easier to trust. And maybe this is kind of an American thing, where we kind of trust our own country a little bit more. I understand that, Europeans and things don't necessarily have that maybe barrier, but you also have convenient hours. It's not like trying to get a hold of London at a, 7-hour time shift or worse if you're on the West Coast. And you've got real English-speaking representatives who I've talked to several times by phone, and they are very pleasant to deal with.
Absolutely. I mean, the big reason for being U.S. based is exactly that. We can offer investors a U.S. account. For non-U.S. individuals, that's actually become quite intriguing. So we're starting to see a big influx of non-U.S. account holders because they want to have an account that's not in their own backyard. For U.S. account holders, there's several realities that they have to deal with, particularly when they look at getting assets outside of the U.S. On face value, getting your assets outside of the U.S. is a good idea, and I agree with that, and that's why we offer international storage. But the way that you do it is there's some nuance there, and really it comes down to personal preference. You have a couple of choices. You can set up a U.S. account to hold your assets overseas, and that's what the Hard Assets Alliance offers. So you have a U.S. controlled account that maybe has gold for storage in Zurich or Singapore, two of our more popular overseas locations. So what does that mean? It means you don't have to deal with reporting a foreign account or foreign holdings, because technically those are U.S. holdings. and yet your metal's still outside of the U.S. You can take delivery of it whenever you want, wherever you want. So I look at that as a nice blend. Others may say, no, I want my metal to be completely outside of the U.S., and that's fine, but you have to declare that. You have to report that. And the reality is, if you're thinking that you can sort of be below the radar and move assets out of the country, I think anyone who's been watching over the last couple of years knows that that is becoming more and more a fairy tale.
Not only a fairy tale, but even kind of dangerous if they end up getting your name from that Swiss banker or from that German programmer who stole a CD or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we do not at all advocate, nor do we want to try and help anyone evade U.S. reporting requirements. We wouldn't encourage that. And we don't have any part in it. But at the same time, we acknowledge that, every individual has individual needs. They may have a house overseas or travel abroad frequently and want to have easy access to some of their assets while they're abroad. That's a perfectly legitimate reason to have metals stored overseas. So we try to make it as easy as we can.
Well, and in our case, we've even got some relatives here that it was a little bit of a step for them to even I guess, embrace the idea of gold ownership in the first place, especially when they're being bombarded with the popular story that it's a relic and so forth. But to get them to actually open an overseas account was just a step they weren't willing to take. And when Hard Assets Alliance came around, I thought, hey, this is perfect. It's exactly what they're looking for.
Sure, and those are exactly the type of people that I hope to reach more of. And shows like yours do a great job of helping us with that. I think it's really important that sort of your mainstream investors start to become more comfortable with precious metals as an asset class. Everyone's got a certain level of comfort and a certain philosophical bend, I guess you'd say, as to how they want to invest. And we do have customers who are self-described as all in. That is all that they invest in is precious metal. And we love those customers, obviously. There are some of our biggest and best customers. But then I speak to others like you referenced who just don't get it, don't understand precious metal at all. And it can be a hard concept to grasp, but when you look at history, it's irrefutable that silver and gold for thousands and thousands of years are the only lasting form of currency that the world has ever seen. And I think it would be hard for anyone that gets a little bit educated to come to any other conclusion than, gee, I really should have some allocation to precious metals in my portfolio, just like other asset classes.
Well, it's kind of surprising that people don't start to see the light when it's always big news when some English farmer plows his field and turns up a few coins, or sea-based recovery firms go after these sunken treasure ships or sunken treasure in these ships. It's always just a big news item, but people still aren't putting two and two together, a lot of them.
Sure. Well, and it's not the party line. It's not what central banks are going to get on mainstream media and tell the general populace that they should buy gold because it's not in their best interest. Though, ironically, central banks over the last several years have been the biggest buyers of gold in the world. So watch what they do, not what they say.
Absolutely. One of the perhaps small disadvantages of being U.S.-based is that you do issue 1099s. Now, just a question here. Do you issue 1099s for all sales or just those where it's actually required, either because of a dollar value or a certain number of ounces of a type of metal? And I don't think people ask this because they necessarily want to cheat on their taxes. I think most think of it more from a privacy end of it. But could you comment on that just briefly?
Sure. So what we do is once a year, and it's the end of January, we issue 1099s for the prior year. And we only issue those 1099s for metal that you have sold. So if you as an individual open or an entity, any customer who buys precious metal through the Hard Assets Alliance and puts it into storage and subsequently sells some or all of it, we will issue you a 1099 on the portion that you've sold.
And
So
never on just a delivery. A delivery is totally irrelevant. Is that
that's
correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. And then obviously with the IRA, there's a different set of reporting that happens. Essentially, once a year, we issue through Entrust, our IRA partner, we issue a distribution statement at the end of each year. So just like any other IRA, if you take money out or if you take metal out, that is considered a distribution and that's reportable.
Sure, sure.